What up, Super Fun Force? Today for TCG Thursdays, I want to quickly go over the heroes. All of the heroes that are currently available in the Flesh and Blood trading card game. Now again, as an introductory video, this is perfect for new players or players that are just maybe starting to play the game and have only tried one or two characters. This will give you an idea of what to expect, and that way you can kind of pursue what characters you want to try, whether you play more on an online client or actually collect the cards, play in your local game store, maybe want to buy Blitz decks, booster boxes or whatnot, and trade with your friends and stuff like that. So again, simply put, this is a card game that's currently PvP. It's a combination of, I would say, like a fighting video game and action RPGs, and supposedly they're working on a PvE version to make it even more of like an action RPG. Although this game can be played with multiple players, currently it's very heavily dedicated to be played one-on-one in different formats: Commoner, Blitz, and Classic Constructed. So we're not going to go over all the details, but again, I'm going to go through the heroes here and just some of the mechanics and just an idea, or just the basic idea and the foundation of how to play the character. That being said, I want to preface by also saying what's great about Flesh and Blood is every character and every deck can be made to be either more offensive, more defensive, or a balance of both. Why? Because every card in Flesh and Blood, almost every card, can be used as an attack card or a card to give you like resources to pay for things, or even to use as a defensive block card. Okay? So that being said, let's take a look at Viscera. Viscera is basically a rune blade. Oh, and last thing, I'm on the official fabtcg.com website. All you have to do is click under their heroes tab and you can see all the available heroes. When you click on them here, you can get more in depth into their lore and as well as examples of their cards. Alright, so Viscera is a rune blade. Definitely a villain, definitely more into the dark magic. Rune blades are great at splitting up physical damage with arcane damage or magical damage, which basically means when I attack with physical damage, my opponent can block with cards from their hand, as I mentioned, and use their defensive block. However, when it comes to me doing magical arcane damage, they need to have a source, like an armor, piece of equipment, that says you can pay resources to prevent magical damage. So arcane damage is a way to tax your opponent's resources in a way, that you're doing damage, versus when they can play a card to maybe block a majority of your physical damage or your attack with one card. All right, with that being said, also rune blades have a general card pool that splits between being able to, pump up an attack or to kind of get more go again. They also have a good balance of armor that can absorb hits. And in Viscera's case, he has a shadow talent, which means he has themed cards that, again, are a little bit more darker. And his deck usually wants to play with making a lot of rune chants. That's his ability. And the rune chants, as they build up, when you take an action, an attack with your weapon or with a card, those rune chants, if you have, let's say, 5 of them, they go against your opponent, and then they ended up being able to do, each one being able to do arcane damage, right? So that's kind of how he plays. Originally, he's been very combo-ish, where people just try to build up like crazy amounts of rune chants and try to take you out on one turn. But I think the deck and everything, the cards are balancing out more. I think it was mostly with this broken combo, but hopefully they'll be fixing that more and more. Okay, so Valdo, we have Guardians. Over here, Guardian basically likes to play very strong, big, singular attacks. Not very much a go again. Excellent with defense, excellent with damage prevention, and of course they're very tanky. They have strong armor. So basically, when you play a Guardian, expect to either, go up against huge, strong attacks, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 upwards, damage, and also they have a good amount of ways to block, defense reactions to continue to block. And lastly, they have cards that have crush effects that can make things happen, like make you discard a card or minus your armor, or you lose go again on your turn. So Guardians, again, can be very offensive, very defense, or a nice mixture of both. All right, Shiana. And just to mention too, like certain heroes are only available in certain formats. So Viscera can be played, with an old hero and a young hero. Valdo right now only has a young hero, so she can only be played in Blitz or Commoner. Shiana is also only available for Blitz and Commoner. Shapeshifter, this is kind of a one of, I would say experimental class. They put it in as like a chase. And basically, Shion has the ability to use the specialization cards from each class, so essentially you'd just be trying to make some combos and synergies and then use all the generic cards. So this is not really a common class you'll see, it's more of a unique class. Alright, Rhinar, we have the Brute. Really cool, obviously looks like another villain here. It looks like kind of like an orc, beast, troll kind of hybrid. Brutes are fun because similar to Guardians, they can hit with strong attacks, not so much go again, but they might have one or two ways to get an extra attack in, or or two a turn, more than a standard Guardian. But they also have, especially Rhinar, this ability to intimidate. They have to discard cards from their hand usually, but it makes it so that when they do that and when they attack, the opponent has to actually take cards from their hand and set them aside in the banish zone and can't use those cards to defend with. And they don't get those cards back until the end of their turn. Very fun to play. Again, very easy card. Easy ways for them to defend. A lot of their cards defend and block for 3, and then, as I said, they can just pump up attacks, make them big, and intimidate you. Prism. We have Illusionist here, Light Illusionist. So Illusionist makes these phantasms, which are usually very low-costing attack cards that transform into enchanted beings and now dragons and stuff. You'll see later. And these things can, again, hit really hard, like 5, 6, 7 damage, even higher. So that's what Prism likes to do. She also likes to create auras, which are almost like enchantments. If you know Magic the Gathering, they stay in play and have additional effects. Her only weakness is that since her attacks are illusionist attacks or phantasm attacks, when you attack and your opponent blocks, if they block with a card that can have an attack value of 6 or higher, they can just break your illusionist attack, cancel it, and then you basically lose your turn. The combat chain is closed. But very unique character. Likes to use a mechanic where they put cards underneath them called their soul to be able to also make little tiny auras that can start to attack you for 1 damage each turn, and they also they take damage and they go away instead of you taking damage when they're out of play. So there's Prism. Alright, so Oldum, again, Guardian here, so same thing like Valdo. The only difference with Oldum, Elemental, who has Ice and Earth talent. So with Tales of Aria, my favorite set, they introduced these cards that are only usable by Elementals, so they have Lightning, Ice, and Earth. Oldum is, once again, Ice and Earth, and basically can use all these cool Ice effects, usually to give the opponents Frostbite tokens, so they have trouble paying for their stuff. Again, hits hard, can defend really well, and just definitely has a great way of being super aggro, super defensive, somewhere in between, and just giving you a negative status. So one of my favorite characters. Lexi I also really like. Archer, right, Ranger. So it tries to set up arrow attacks. So it needs to use a bow, needs to put arrows into the arsenal, and same thing like the elementals here. She is lightning and ice, and she can try to either build big, strong arrow attacks, or she can start to do rapid arrow attacks. You can also build her to do status because she is ice. So very fun, flexible character to play. Usually you want to be very offensive with Lexi, though. It might be difficult to play her defensively or purely defensively, but she would be nice, very offensive, or kind of a balance with some defense. Levia, probably the worst character in the game. It's basically just a brute like Rhinar, but she also has some shadow cards and some unique cards. So she's obviously evil and a villain, but to me not really as effective. A little bit thematic as far as being chaos. She has ways to increase her damage and then do damage to herself or have negative effects, but very hard to play. But if you want to have some kind of thematic villain, interesting character. KO. Another great brute. So I will say KO is basically like Rhinar, but KO can only be played as a young hero in Blitz and Commoner. KO has some cool effects, dice rolling. So it's very RNG based, but you can pull off some tremendous attacks and some really cool combos. Really enjoyable to play, and you can definitely make it somewhat consistent as far as giving yourself more chances to roll. But again, plays like Rhinar, but adds huge bonuses, but also big risks and a lot of things you have to overcome if you don't roll high. Cabdane is a merchant. There's 2 of these in the game right now, and they're a little bit more like I want to say shapeshifters, where they're just kind of unique classes that are not really supported by specific cards. They're just generic, so you kind of just mix in generic cards. You can't use like, ninja, warrior, wizard, guardian, elemental cards. There's because again, there's no merchant cards right now, so mostly just for thematic. We do have items in the game, but again, items can be used by everybody, so we'll have to see how they develop. Right now, it's just more of like a thematic and just a general deck if you want to play with only general cards, generics, not like anything super specific. Katsu, my favorite ninja, or one of my favorite two ninjas. Katsu plays definitely like kind of a Street Fighter game or like a combo game. Ninjas basically like to go wide. They like to attack you a lot. And they also have ways to pump up their attacks after they're blocked. Slightly, not as much as Warrior, which is the next one we'll talk about. But they still have ways to pump up. Great offense, great defense. Can definitely be played as more of an offensive character, or sometimes it's good to have defensive balance as well. But as far as being pure defense, wouldn't really play them that way. But Katsu is interesting because their ninja cards need to be played in a specific order to get bonuses and to keep making each consecutive card more powerful with more effects. And Katsu has ways to discard and then search his deck for a combo card, so it makes it a lot easier for him to kind of piece things together. And he has this kind of cool knowledge theme, like trading cards, like knowledge, research, wandering, and planning things from like a wise and enlightened perspective. So really, really cool. Kaisa, like I mentioned, warriors are very tanky because they have good armor, good defensive cards, and basically in terms of blocking, a lot of the cards always block for 3, similar to ninja, but they have better armor that can be used multiple times, sometimes even indefinitely. Kaisa basically though works on this attack with 2 weapons each turn, and then kind of gives her the ability to generate copper. She's a sellsword or like a mercenary, and as you generate copper, you have a few cards that can give you effects like draw more cards, or she has her specialization card, her ultimate attack, lets her do things like increase her damage, attack more times a turn, depending on how much copper you spend. So really cool, really thematic, very solid. Only available right now as a young hero, so that's Blitz Commoner. But very powerful, very fun warrior to play, and very thematic. Kano, the wizard. I will say that this is probably the most complicated character to play and the most complicated class to play. Wizards do basically inherently only arcane damage, unless you build, generic cards that have physical attacks, right? So arcane damage, and then essentially what they do is they have good blocking cards, but most of their abilities have to kind of take place as instants or on your opponent's turn. So you kind of have like one extra turn of your opponent, but again, it's very difficult to calculate your damage. The cards have to be basically played and specifically sequenced for maximum benefit. And then on top of that, Kano likes to play cards off the top of his deck, and his ability lets him do that. Lets him look at the top of his your deck. So that's tricky because you gotta start to memorize and put order, like an order of like what your deck is. And if you can even, go all the way back around your deck, then you can start to see what you placed in what order, and that will even make you much more effective and dangerous. So again, very fun. It's like kind of glass cannon with wizards. So, you can output incredible amounts of damage, but you're generally a little bit more fragile. And at the same time, you can run into problems if your opponent plays a lot of arcane barrier, which is the way to cancel, arcane damage and magical damage. But super fun to play if you like wizards and you don't mind, again, doing a lot of math or complex sequence. But that's cool, right? Thematic for wizards, intelligence. If you think back to RPGs, D&Ds, you want a lot of intelligence, memorization. So yeah, this definitely captures that. All right, we have Ira here, the ninja. I think this was the very first character released. Ira basically plays like every other ninja. Like I was saying, you attack wide. She has some specific cards, but the reason why I don't really like Ira as much anymore is she kind of is superseded by Katsu, because Katsu and her will do the same thing, but he has more unique cards and he can actually search for combos, where like Ira's cards don't really combo, or the generic ninja cards are more like if a card hits, on hit effect, you can go again, or your next attack gets +1. And, she has an ability to just give the second attack +1 damage a turn, which, again, is not even that good anymore because I'll tell you why a little later when we see the other ninja. But at least Katsu, he has a lot of cards that combo, and then he can search for those combo cards, where she can't search for the cards. Genus, not much to say about Genus. Just like Cavdine, just a merchant right now. So other than the two, each of them have their own unique abilities. So if you look at the cards, the character cards, Genus does something unique, Cavdine does something unique. But other than that, you're just playing generic cards right now. Dorinthia, cool warrior. She basically, like I mentioned with Kasai, has all the benefits of the warrior. Right now, she has two ways to play, where you can play with a singular weapon, because her signature weapon is this effect and this theme where, like, the more she hits you with it, the more it gets increases of damage, like permanent damage that can still be removed if you stop attacking and hitting with her sword. But the more you hit with her sword, basically, the stronger her sword gets. But you can also play her with two weapons. And, yeah, she has a couple of weapons to choose from. So, really cool. And then, just like I forgot to mention with warriors here, what she does really well, what warriors do really well, is they have a lot of attack buffs and bonus boost damage after your opponent blocks, which is very important, because once you attack and then your opponent blocks with a card or with their armor, they cannot start to add more cards and more armor and block again unless they have reactions. So after the blocking is done, the first step, warriors can start reacting and adding more damage, and then the other opponent can only react with defense reactions. Alright, Daedalus. Possibly another weak character, just because her ability is like the most detrimental, which she can only have 3 cards, or she only has 3 intellect, which basically says you can, you have 1 less card in your hand than all the other characters in the game. And I think they were a little bit wanting to try to balance it and didn't want to make her too powerful, because she has a lot of ways to play equipment for free. So Mechanologist, I think this is also awesome. I do like Mechanologist. It's like steampunk, as you can see here. This looks very like cyborg, sci-fi, futuristic. But if you look to the next character, boom, Dash, they're more steampunk based, and that's cool to see steampunk in an RPG trading card game, right? With also like you got samurai and ninja influences. You have European medieval. You have definitely like magical stuff. So it's a great blend, flesh and blood. So like I was saying, Mechanologists like to also attack a lot during a turn, like ninjas and to a certain extent warriors. But the Mechanologists have a flaw where like they start losing cards in their deck in order for them to keep going. So it's kind of like they run out of steam faster than the other classes. Once again, pretty cool thematics going on. And they also have a lot of equipment. They have a lot of things that they can play, almost like how the illusionists can put out auras, right? Like enchantments. They can put out like kind of like artifacts. Again, if you're coming from a game like Magic the Gathering, they can put out equipment that has a certain amount of steam counters. Once those steam counters get used up, the equipment is gone. But still, they can definitely put out items. So there's a difference between Daedalus and Dash. She likes to put out a lot of items for free, possibly with her character power, and she has 1 less card in your hand. Dash is just right now the only other Mechanologist, so you get all the benefits of the Mechanologist without the losing 1 card. She can't play equipment from her deck, as easily and as frequently as Daedalus, but Dash lets you start the game with 1 equipment from your deck in play already. So that's pretty cool. All right, and then Chain, Shadow Runeblade. So like I said, kind of like the Viscera guy down here. Chain definitely has an ability to let him attack multiple times a turn. And he has the ability to play cards back from his discard pile. So it's kind of like a recursion character. And because it's a Runeblade, it can attack, or Chain can attack you with arcane magical damage. But instead of building up a lot of rune chance to hit you for like 2, 3, 4, 5 arcane damage in 1 turn, Chain usually just kind of tries to play like 1 or a little bit of damage here and there. So Viscera, like I said, Viscera can do like 1 damage to you arcane every turn, or like build it up. Chain kind of has to source out what cards to do arcane damage. So he's a little bit more physical based for sure. But again, plenty of recursion. The only character to really be able to recur cards easily. Levia can also do that a little bit because she's a brute. but definitely not as much as Chain. All right, Briar. I like Briar too. She's cool. Elemental Runeblade, the third character from Tales of Aria. She is Earth and Lightning, so she has a good balance between being super offensive and super defensive, because Earth is very defensive and it also pumps up attacks, and Lightning lets you attack multiple times, and she can also do some arcane damage here and there. Definitely not as much as Chain or Viscera, but she can generally try to poke you for one here and there. And then also I was going to say Chain can be played, I guess, somewhat balanced, but definitely more favorable to play him as a offensive, aggressive character, but still has good armor, good defense reaction. Just to back up again really quick, steampunk characters, mechanologists, have good cards that block with 3, and they have decent defense. So they can definitely pivot into a balance, but definitely also like to rush you down. All right, Bravo, Elemental Guardian. We have 2 versions of 2 Bravos. One has elemental powers. I think it's really cool, really fun, really thematic. Last season was arguably considered to be too overpowered. So currently now Living Legend, and I want to see how Living Legends work in the future, where people can play with more characters that have been cycled out of the competitive scene. Essentially, in the competitive scene, when a character reaches a certain amount of victories through the points accumulation from events, tournaments, and things like that, they have to get rotated into a Living Legends block, which will eventually be its own block to play in, or own format. So yeah, so Bravo, both Bravos do what Guardians do, like I mentioned with Valda. So Bravo is, obviously the Guardian you'd play in the Classic Constructed, because you can't use Valda. Likes to also, dominate. Guardians like to dominate, which means when they attack you with something, especially when it's a big attack, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage, you can only block with 1 card from your hand. So that means that you're going to probably take a lot more damage than you should. This Bravo here just has the ability to use all the elements, which is, again, really cool. Lets you build some crazy decks, but has a specific build and attack pattern in mind, which, makes him thematic and very attack focused, honestly. This Bravo can be built to be a little more balanced and defensive. All right, we're almost done. We have Bolton, Light Warrior. So light, opposite of the shadow, kind of like the Prism, is on the light side of things, right? Light abilities put cards into her soul. Those cards in the soul can be used to make other effects happen. Like with Bolton, it lets him, attack again. He is a warrior too, so he has access to, good armor, good defensive options in terms of his cards being 3 blocks, some decent reactions, and his actual class cards, like light cards, are pretty neat. He has a little bit of some pumping up after people block. He's like very combo based right now, where he tries to build up on a turn where he has 2 cards that kind of let him attack. If you have 2 swords, right, he actually likes to use the swords of Kaisa, the Centauri Sabers, and then he could kind of like attack you a lot in 1 turn, like 4 times or something like that. So and then again it gets all this cumulative effects, right? The swords get a little bit stronger, maybe you gain life. It's just mainly right now he has a combo version he can play, but you can still play him with like a singular sword, and he's starting to evolve more to have more diversity in his game. But definitely this is a combo character to play that feels very fair. It feels very fair because you pull off the combo, you don't necessarily just win that turn. You still have to fight, and play and interact to get there, or even after the fact. If you pull off one of the combos, you'll have to try to do it again, maybe. At the same time, you'll still have to kind of fight regularly, interact, and defend. Whereas I think the main problem, the only hero that I didn't like was Viscera. Viscera felt very unfair, way more so than the Bravo, because you can just sit there and do nothing, and just sometimes block just to build up again, like whatever, 30 rune chance, 40 rune chance, and just try to win on 1 turn. Combo is cool, but like this game, you should still be interacting and fighting your opponent. You shouldn't just be sitting there just being like, oh, rune chat, rune chat, rune chat, rune chat. Like that doesn't really seem very, thematic in a fight. Like you're not going to be fighting someone and they're going to sit around making rune chants like while you're swinging your sword or trying to hit them, So anyways, there's Bolton. Then we got Benji, my other favorite ninja. Benji's only young, so you can only play him in Blitz or in Commoner. Benji has a cool ability where you play small attacks and they cannot be blocked unless they're being blocked by armor or reactions. They can't be blocked with cards from your hand. And again, this is why Benji, like I was saying, is way better than Ira, and why Ira is surpassed. They basically have the same ability where their second attack gets +1 damage, right? A turn, but then that's kind of where she ends. And then he has that ability that she has, but then now he has the one I mentioned where if he attacks you with attacks that are 2 or 1 damage, they're almost unblockable. That's like way better than Ira. So it's almost like, I don't know if they need to update her and errata her. They need to give her something to make her unique and different. Because the ninjas are getting very competitive, you know. I told you why Katsu is still unique and good. Now I'm telling you why Benji's unique and good. And there's one more ninja we'll talk about. So it's very competitive as far as like, you know, you can play those 3, and why would you play Ira if all other ninjas are better than her, you know? She's only a young ninja, by the way, Blitz and Commoner, but again, you would just play Benji. You know what I mean? You could even play this other guy. But anyways, Azalea's been tough. She's a fan favorite. She's the first ranger, arrow-based. And she has some decent on-hit effects. That's what makes her unique. She has cards that like arrows, just like Lexi as well. I forgot to mention Lexi here. Where the Rangers also have cool abilities that when they hit you, they basically, you know, give status to your opponents, give them more problems, basically. So Azalea's good at doing that. And if you definitely like that theme of like, oh, I got to put a card into my arsenal, so it's like loading into my bow, and then I shoot my arrow, then you'll enjoy playing Azalea or Lexi. One thing I feel like has not really been explored, the one thing that I've been playing with my Lexi deck, is I still mix in some attack cards. You know, you can't use weapons other than bows with them, you know, because, I mean, there's only like maybe 1 or 2 generic weapons, but like, you definitely want to use bows and arrows with them. But you can play some attack cards that just attack, right? Because the problem with the arrows is like, if you don't draw an arrow and you can't attack, it's like, oh man, your turn's kind of wasted. But, you know, it's kind of nice to also just have cards that like straight up attack, right? And then you don't have to like put it in your arsenal and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, there's Azalea. And now we got the 3 new heroes. The last 3, we have Icelander, who kind of belongs with Tales of Aria, but she came out in this new set, Uprising. By the way, these are the sets and whatever. So again, a wizard like Kano, but instead of doing a lot of damage like Kano, Icelander uses obviously ice. She's an ice wizard. Similar to what I was saying with Oldhim and even Lexi, the ice cards kind of give negative status and make it hard for your opponents to play and pay to play cards and pay for the cards with their resources. It basically like taxes them more. And then again, Icelander does a lot of like, I'll do instants and play cards on my opponent's turn. And she kind of has a combo going. She has like very specific sequences, and she has like a combo to kind of give you a bunch of frostbites and finish you off that way with damage. Really cool. I was thinking of playing Icelander, but I decided to just stick with Lexi and Oldum, you know, and I did like how I built her prior to this, though. In Blitz, she was still fun, but yeah, she has a ton of cards now, so if you like the idea of like wizards, but you want to be a little more like status and like, you know, kind of I guess making it difficult for your opponent to play cards, then yeah, she's a good alternative to Kano. All right, Fi. Fi is a draconic ninja, so it uses this new kind of like fire ability, dragon fire and phoenix style like kind of theme. And instead of using combos, right, like Katsu does, and instead of having unblockable cards like Benji, Fi will go wide, like any of the other ninjas, and attack you a lot, but this character can go really, really wide, and instead of having to play like a combo in a specific order, basically his cards just get stronger and better when they get higher on the attack chain. So like if you attack with something like you have 2 attacks, then this one gets to go again. If you get 4 attacks, now you can do extra 3 damage, etc., etc. So Fi is really thematic too. He has 1 card in his deck that he can recur. He can actually start the game with it in his graveyard. It's called a Phoenix Flame. And it's a small attack, but like you can keep bringing it back, so you always have like an extra attack other than your weapon. So that's really cool theme there. Yeah, if you like ninjas, if you like Avatar and Zuko and the Fire Nation and stuff, you'll definitely enjoy playing this thematically. I think it's a great ninja to play because it's not as complex to learn as like Katsu, where you have to like know the combo lines, you have to know which cards to get, you have to make sure you play them in order. Because if you don't play them in order, can you still maximize them? Etc., etc. You can be a little bit more free-flowing with Fi. You can attack with the cards in different orders, just kind of find the right line and make sure you play the ones that, you know, have better effects towards the end. And yet you can still mix in some, you know, some defense if you want, like, you know, like other ninjas. But I think Fi is definitely really, really good, very offensive. But I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing a little bit more balance with ninja defense reactions and stuff like that in the future. Lastly, we have Dromai, Draconic Illusionist. So like I mentioned here, creates these phantasm illusions like Prism, but hers are not light, hers are draconic, and they're actually allies that stay in play, and they also have their own HP. So they can be taken out normally with, you know, attacks and damages, but they can also still be broken and destroyed when blocked by cards that have an attack of 6 or higher. So I think it's a pretty cool mechanic, and it feels like a summoning. If you like summoning, you know, stuff like creatures and dragons, especially, you know, akin to games like Final Fantasy, and just you know, other MMOs and stuff like that, where you bring like monster allies, and this will be really fun for you. And yeah, very offensive for sure. All right, guys, those are the available heroes. I tried to go as fast as I could. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. And like I said, I recommend this game. It has a nice flavor of everything. You have like, you know, kind of like Asian style. You have like Western, you know, medieval European. You got steampunk. You got like super fantasy stuff. You know, shadows, elementals, and you know, got evil villain characters. You have like orcs. You know, Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely give this game a try. And let me know what you guys think. All right, thanks so much for liking and subscribing. Every week I'll have TCG videos and stuff, and talk about cards and talk about the game decks and stuff. So thanks for liking and subscribing. In the meantime, don't forget, keep your faith, say a prayer, spread that love, be positive, be thankful. Peace.